Aw, no. No, that's not it. That's not it either. No, 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 no. Where is it? Where is it? I've lost it. The greatest weapon in my entire armory, everything that I've owned. Escanor's axe, I think I have Ichigo Zangetsu somewhere. It doesn't matter, it all pales in comparison to that. If I've lost this weapon, ladies and gentlemen, the world could be... Oh, it's right over there. Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. I almost freaked out for a second there. Reel it back in, Matt, reel it back in. All right, for the last chapter review of the year, I'm dusting this one off. Are you guys ready? All right, here we go. I can only show it to you for a little bit because the power is too great. Whoop slaps Kane. Elbath! It's too powerful. I need to put it away. I'm sorry. I think part of the universe might have just collapsed. Whatever galaxy it was, thankfully not ours. Maybe Andromeda. Somebody should check on Andromeda to see if it's still there right now. Whew. All right, anyway. Yeah, chapter came out earlier than I expected. This always happens every year, every single year. It's like, well, that's the last chapter for this year, and then like a week later, it'd be like, chapter's out early, okay. You think I would have learned by now. All right, anyway. This will be One Piece, chapter 1135 review, titled Camaraderie Cups. As in you sit down with your friends and you cherish, what is the word? Camaraderie. Yeah, I guess that's it. Friendship. Friendship cups probably would have worked well, but whatever. Camaraderie. You have cups and you drink and it's, yeah, okay. So we continue on with Onichild Yamato and the Holy Inari Shrine Pilgrimage, Volume 21. This one's not about Yamato, though. Yamato's not even in this one, no. So last time we had Hold'em kidnapping Tama for like the second time in this story, all right? And this one, though, we see that Tama is actually way stronger than she originally was. She has been training with Shinobu to be a ninja, to be a kunoichi, which I watched Naruto, that means female ninja, so there you go. And she breaks out of Hold'em's hold, I guess, and then kicks him square in the face. I mean, there's blood. She kicks Hold'em so damn hard in the face, it like causes blood. Even the lion is bleeding a little bit. I think what happened is that Hold'em had his sword. Tama kicked him in the jaw. He dropped the sword, and the sword, like, slashed the lion that was coming out of his stomach, right? Knocks his hat off and everything. Okay. So, I'm stronger than I was before. Damn, I'd say. Okay, so, do we power scale this? I don't know how to power scale. Can we try power scaling this? Okay, so we all know Hold'em is pretty tough. I mean, not like tough in terms of like the disasters like King, Queen, and Jack and Kaido. He's obviously not on that level. Hold'em is a gifter. He's one of the headliners though, so he's one of the strongest gifters. Let's make it easy. Is Hold'em stronger than Arlong? East Blue Arlong. I would say most people would say, yeah, Hold'em is obviously stronger than Arlong. He's pretty tough, okay? Yeah, you know, Hold'em would have probably just defeated Arlong like that, right? Okay. Well, if Hold'em is stronger than Arlong, and if Tama just kicked him so hard in the face that he's bleeding and he's reeling and he's like, oh! And also Tama, you know, he was holding her like in like a headlock, so Tama had to like break out of that and then kick him in the jaw. So like, I think Tama's, like, stronger than Arlong, right? That's how power scaling works, right? Yeah, okay, I feel accomplished. All right. So we continue with the chapter. We are now in the Owl Library. We're going to split kind of between... We're going to move around a lot in this chapter. So, you know, take notes on where we're going. We're opening up in the Owl Library, though. We have a nice, adorable scene with Bonnie and Chopper on top of one of the giant books. And they're trying to read it. And it's an interesting inverse of the problem from earlier, where Dory and Broggy were trying to read the paper, and it's like, it's too tiny. We can't read it. Well, now, because these books are like...
I don't know, like, I don't know, 12 feet tall. I mean, it's a big book, right? They're the size of like a room. And so, Chopper and Bonnie are actually having a hard time reading the book. This is something interesting, actually, because we're actually seeing the written language of the One Piece world, which we've seen before, like, plenty of times. But we see it in kind of high detail here, and it looks like the book is just made a poneglyph script a little bit. I don't think it's exactly poneglyph script, but it looks like similar. There's some indications, there's some characters that look like an A or an F. There's others. There's one that looks like a 0 with like a dash through it. So I don't know if that's like code or something. If you like switch it upside down to actually see if there's something written in that book that's like established. It's not like Hunter x Hunter that has an established one-to-one alphabet in that series, right? That Tagashi came up with, and you can actually translate stuff out. No, this is something else. But yeah. Anyway, they're reading the book. We'll worry about if there's anything written in that book actually later, if someone wants to decipher that, if it's even possible, right? It's like, oh yeah, we can't read the book. So Saul is there, and he looks up on top of the owl library on one of the branches. Last time we saw a giant owl hanging out on the branch, just kind of snoozing, having a little, afternoon nap. And it makes sense why it's called the owl library, because there is a giant owl there. Well, it is explained that that owl is the head librarian, as it were. The master of the owl library is a giant owl named Bibelot. Bibelot. I think it's based off of bibliography. Also, OWL can be I think it's an acronym for Online Writing Lab, which is something that like universities will do to offer various things for students on like writing their papers in like college and stuff like that. Assistance with like presentations and PowerPoints and citations. I hated citations! Why did you have to cite everything in college? God, that brought back such horrible memories. MLA, APA, that Chicago crap that you had to do. I mean, like, you might say, well, teching, there's different websites you could use today. I understand that. I just didn't like to do it. I don't cite things on my YouTube videos. That's why I do this. You shouldn't have to cite anything, Here's the ultimate citation. Come on! Like, that's the ultimate citation. Trust me, bro, okay? Just like, yeah, hey, guys, there's this one time Luffy kicked God in the face. Yeah, citation. What am I going to do that every single time I reference something? I don't know. So there's a reference to OWL that maybe Oda might have taken, Online Writing Lab. It's like an acronym in our world. Bibliography. I also wanted to say it might be similar to Bubo, the owl from Clash of the Titans, the old Ray Harryhausen movie from way back in like the 60s. And that one was it's a mechanical owl that like Hephaestus designed in the movie. It doesn't actually appear in real Greek mythology. It was just a thing invented for the movie. But it's very iconic, and everybody remembers the mechanical owl from Clash of the Titans, right? So that was pretty neat. Maybe that's the reference too. So Bibelot is a giant owl who, by the way, seems to just be an owl. Not like a person that ate the owl zone or anything like that. Just a giant owl, and the owl is just hanging out. Is like this wizened old character. I don't know if it's just rings around its eyes or if it's actually wearing glasses. Has a lot of like lines under his eyes to indicate that he's a very old owl. Saul says that, they say old Bibelot's been here for over 100 years or hundreds of years, and no one really knows. But anyone that people do know is that any book that enters the space of the library in Bibelot's presence will grow huge. So this is the reason why the books grow gigantic, okay? And we'll get to that in a moment here. But yeah, just Bibelot does not come down from the perch and talk to anybody, and apparently just hoots like an owl, like, whoo, whoo. Now, I will bring up that Chopper is able to talk to animals, and I feel like there's something that could have been done with that in this chapter, but it is never brought up. So I don't know about that. I feel like maybe later Oda could do something with that, but like Chopper is right there, and they're learning about this giant owl who apparently is just an owl, and it does probably have a devil fruit ability, as what Lilith is going to say in a second. So that devil fruit ability is a paramecia, not a zone, so it's just a giant owl. You think Chopper could have been like, oh, hey, Bibelot, what's up? Oh, hello there. It's been so long since I've been able to converse with anybody. Ah, yes, how are you? Feel free to peruse my bibliography. Ooh, something like that, right? But no, unfortunately, we don't get that. So And Lilith says that, he must have eaten the Iku no Mi. Now, I had to contact Artor on this, okay, because this translation uses rear fruit, like rear, like R-E-A-R, and I'm like, okay, and the owl has become a nurturing owl. Okay, so Iku no Mi. As Artor said, Iku comes from the word ikuse, and that means to nurture, to foster growth. It's used typically in like growing plants, like not in the way of like raising like a child, although I guess you could use it in that sense. It's more about like nurturing plants, nursing a plant to get it to grow, or maybe an animal. But in this context, it's specifically mentioned that inanimate objects grow larger in the presence of Bibelot. So that is the nature of the ability, just makes things bigger, or inanimate objects bigger, all right? Not really necessarily living things, okay? News coup do not come to Elbaf since they are not part of the world government. That's confirmation on that. I think it's something we kind of already could conclude, but yeah, Elbaf is not allied with the world government. Now, there are giants that are part of the world government. There are giants like LaCroix and Roncey and some other various giants. A John Giant, the first giant to ever be a Marine. Saul even was a Marine that do join the government, but it's not like the giants are only living on Elbaf. There's other islands where giants live. Elbaf is just kind of their ancestral homeland, and they're allowed to leave whenever they want. It's not like a closed-off isolationist policy like with Wano, where you're not allowed to leave, or if you do leave, you're a criminal. Giants can leave whenever they want. If they feel like taking their family and going to some other region of the world and setting up shop, they can do that too. If they want to leave Elbaf and go join the Marines, they can do that too. It's just they do not speak for all of giant kind that they are allied there. Also, I guess, yeah, Morgans has a deal with the government that he will only deliver his newspapers to government-affiliated nations. Those are on the mailing list for the news coup, and anybody else that isn't allied doesn't get a newspaper, right? But they also mention some fishermen every now and then will bring newspapers to Elbaf, and then they can just take those newspapers, bring them into the Owl Library, and it just expands. You know, I really like this. You know, like, it's not that much, like, we don't focus on it too much here. We might learn a little bit more about Bibelot as we go. But it's cool that Oda addresses this big thing of like, how do giants read books that are meant for humans? Well, it's because we have a giant owl that ate a devil fruit ability. There you go. Devil fruit powers solve everything, right? Lilith is the one that mentions the Iku no Mi because Lilith has read the Encyclopedia of Devil Fruits cover to cover. And while some devil fruits might not be in the encyclopedia, it doesn't have a complete list of everything that ever existed. Like, I don't think the ancient devil fruit that Loki ate at Elbaf would have been in the encyclopedia. I don't think that was in there, and a few other ones that might not have shown up in there. Some of the rarer ones, for instance, like would Kaido's dragon fruit have been in there? Maybe, who knows? Some of the more rare mythical zones. But, you know, because of that, Lilith kind of also has a large variety of information involving devil fruits. So it's like, oh yes, the ability to make inanimate objects grow larger when it enters a certain proximity. Yeah, that's the Iku no Mi. That's probably this. So to think that even inorganic things can grow with his power. Oh, so maybe it is an indication that maybe anything can grow larger with the ability. I'm not really sure. Oh, do you think it has something to do with that giant sword sticking out of the freaking tree? I guess not, because, well, we don't actually know where the Owl Library is. Maybe the Owl Library is right relative in location to that giant sword. Or maybe it was a former user of the fruit, although it was mentioned Bibelot's been here for like hundreds of years. Not thousands of years, though, just hundreds of years. I don't know, maybe Bibelot has been around since the Void Century and is the guardian of these books or something. Chopper needs to ask some questions to Bibelot, okay? Of just like, okay, what's your story? What's going on here, right? So we see Robin hanging out. She's just sitting on a book. The book says history of, and then Robin's legs are covering up the other word. So I'm not really sure what that word is. It just says history of, and then Robin's legs. Now, don't get me wrong. Robin's legs are fantastic, but I want to learn what's going on here. You know, like Oda's hiding any secret messages in the words of the books or something going on here. I don't know. So Chopper goes up to Robin and is like, oh, hey, I hope they have some medical books here. And Robin says, well, I know back on Ohara we had a few medical books, but it was mostly on history and archaeology, because that was the whole focus of Ohara. They go on to say, oh, we got some, Saul says, yeah, we got medical books. There were actually some here that weren't taken from Ohara. Ohara. There are ones that we just have normally. However, they were written as giant books to begin with, and ergo, Bibelot's power will not shrink them down. Okay, Bibelot can only make things bigger, not smaller, all right? So they might have medical books, but Chopper would have to get big himself to read it. What if Chopper goes into Monster Point just to get a better view of the book? That would actually work really well. If Chopper was in Monster Point, he could probably, it still wouldn't be a perfect fit, because Chopper in Monster Point is not as big as a giant, but he's getting there. So I don't know, it would probably be like a toddler trying to read like a giant encyclopedia, but it would be better than like how tiny Chopper is now trying to read a book, right? That would actually be kind of funny if he goes Monster Point for that alone. So we cut back outside to the Walrus School where Luffy and the Giants are playing on a giant swing. All right, so Luffy's on the swing and the Giants are on the swing. And you ever been on a swing growing up and maybe your parent or your older sibling or someone just like pushed you on the swing way too high to the point where you think you're gonna loop all the way around? Has anybody ever actually done that as a kid? Has anyone ever actually managed to go all the way around the swing? Like, ah! You know, I don't think it ever got to that point with me. But anyway, Luffy is on the swing, and the giant kids from the last chapter, the ones that are all about peace and whatever nonsense, they're crying their eyes out. They're like, ah, please stop, little man, we don't want to get hurt. And so the swing keeps going up and up. You know, Luffy's having fun on it. Usopp's also on the swing as well. I'm imagining it's like Frankie or maybe Zoro at the bottom that's like pushing the swing as it goes down, and then they're just super strong. They're like, whoa! So Luffy's having a good time. Usopp's scared, but the giant kids are not. In fact, one of the giant kids has horns coming out of his head. In fact, we see that from a few of them, and this is not a helmet. I'm pretty sure it's not a helmet. There's just horns coming out of some of the characters on Elbaf's heads. So once again, maybe a relation to the ancient giants from way back in the day. We gotta learn about the ancient giants here, right? We gotta learn about what the deal is with the ancient giants compared to the regular giants of Elbaf and how that goes down, and why some people in the world are just born with horns, like Kaido and Yamato, and in the case here we have some of the giant kids and stuff. Even like Moria had horns, like little small horns, like he was more of like a devil person. Magellan did too, although I think, no, Magellans were just his, they were ornamental. They were just like, yeah, they just like came off and he used them for a technique. Yeah, but yeah, that's interesting there. So, Nami beats up Luffy and Usopp for scaring the kids on the swing, because Nami really cares about kids and everything. I think it was actually mentioned in one of the SBSs that if Nami had a job in our world, she would be like an elementary school teacher. So she's just like, hey, you're scaring them, knock it off. And she smacks the crap out of Luffy and Usopp. Oh, wait a minute, can we do more power scaling? Okay, very clearly we see right here Nami smacking Luffy, and he has giant, I mean, we've seen this before. You know, she's beaten him up before. So clearly Nami is like the strongest character in One Piece, right? Right? Yeah, I should be a power scaler, man. This is easy. So, oh, we have this scene. We have a scene very similar to the Momonosuke scene when Momonosuke would run over to Nami or Robin, like, oh, they're mean to me. And then Momonosuke would run right into, like, Nami's chest and, like, stare at everybody like, ha, 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 ha. And the same exact scene happens here where the kids run over to Gerd and they run into Gerd. It's like, oh, it's okay. Oh, you poor thing. And then Sanji looks over and the kid strikes the exact same expression that Momonosuke did. And so Sanji's like, oh, come on, not this shit again. Oh, man. So Usopp and Luffy kind of talk about how it's a bit of a letdown that the kids of Elbaf that are supposed to be these, you know, they're supposed to be warriors, they're supposed to grow up to be pirates and go out to sea and pillage and plunder, they're supposed to be Vikings for God's sake, are just afraid of swinging on a swing. Like, come on, what's the swing there if not to swing, you know? So he's like, oh, this is a little bit of a letdown. And Usopp's like, yeah, I guess it is, but I mean, come on now, is peaceful giants really all that bad? And it's like, well, it is when you're trying to tell a badass Viking story in a shonen manga. What? You expect me to believe that out there somewhere there's some kind of manga based on Viking society around 1000 AD with a main character that doesn't like to fight and has no enemies? There's no way that exists. Just go read Vinland Saga already, please. For me, I started reading Vinland Saga New Year's Day back in like 2020. All right, so this is the perfect time of year to start it. Okay. So, anyway, just as they're talking about how, man, these giant kids, they don't care about war or whatever, what's up with them? A giant sword comes out of nowhere. Luffy senses it with his observation. He jumps out of the way. The sword lands right next to him. He's like, so much for peaceful. Okay, now we're in for a fight. Giant kid takes a sword, swings it at Luffy. It's revealed to be Colin. I think his name is Colin or something, but his name is Colin, all right? He swings the wooden sword. Luffy obviously just, just does that with his hand really quick. I don't even know if he does gear second or anything. He just does that, and it just shatters the giant wooden sword into splinters right then and there. And then Luffy goes gear third armament hockey. Colin is 8 years old in terms of he's a giant, but actually half giant from what we're gonna find out. But he's a kid, and Luffy's like, I've been itching for a fight. All right, gear third, armament hockey, elephant gun, let's go! You wanna go? So he brings it down. Colin thankfully avoids it, because if he got hit head on with that thing, he is wearing a helmet. But even so, I think that might have given him a concussion or so. Can you get multiple concussions at once, or is it just if you hit your head, you just get one concussion? Can you get 3 concussions at the same time? Because that might have been what would have happened there with Colin and the elephant gun. Anyway, so Luffy, attacks it. He misses. He hits the ground. Usopp's like, hey, Luffy, maybe don't use a technique you used to smash Kaido into the ground on a child. Maybe that might be a good idea. All right? And Luffy's like, I didn't even hit him. It's that's not the point. I'm actually surprised Nami did not beat Luffy to death right then and there after this scene. But Luffy's, striking a smile, and he's like, it's good to know not everybody around here is weak and spineless. And all the kids are like, Luffy's a meanie. And also, Colin, you're also a meanie, right? And so we learn that Colin is sort of the delinquent of the Walrus School. All the other kids kind of hate him a little bit. They're all just saying, you're too violent. You're always ditching school. You're always doing these crazy antics and these stunts. We hate you. You're such a brute. You're always trying to fight people and beat people up. So this is cool because it's cool that Colin wants to beat people up. No, because we saw Colin earlier at the pub when Shanks was there, and Shanks was about to go fight Eustace Kid, and Colin was just like, hey, Shanks, is it a war? Are we going to war, Shanks? So that kid was clearly all into the whole warfaring aspect of the Viking culture of Elbaf. Also makes sense why he was probably hanging out in the pub, because he was probably just he has nothing in common with these kids up here. And this is probably going to be a subplot of Elbaf. This might be a little, Colin's little side story where, he realizes that maybe, he's putting himself separate from everybody else, but he has a lot in common with the other kids as well, and they can all get along, and Colin might say something like, whatever, who cares? Those kids never want to play with me, whatever, I'll just go over here and hang out with the big giants that are warriors. And it's yeah, Colin, but you have to understand, they're just saying that maybe fighting all the time is not maybe a good thing. Maybe it's okay to be peaceful every once in a while. And I'm sure we'll have a whole subplot with that, right? Anyway, Colin looks down at Luffy and he's ecstatic. He's like, that was so cool how you broke my sword and almost gave me 7 concussions with a giant armament hockey punch. You're an emperor, right? We knew you were. Yeah, you're strong, right? So, Colin's arguing with all the other kids. You suck, Colin. It's shut up. I hate weaklings like you. Colin is the kid that walks into class with that wooden sword and just smacks people upside the head for no reason and just be like, come on, get up and fight me. And the kid is like, Miss Ripley, Colin hit me again. It's gonna be that. That's the kind of kid Colin is, right? We see another kid with horns sticking out of her head. So, yeah, I don't know. That's gonna be referenced at some point. All right, fun fact. Ripley is Colin's mom. So there we go. And she's actually pretty chill with this. She's like, Colin, don't cause a scene. By the way, that was a fantastic first strike. She praises Colin for the sneak attack on Luffy. It didn't work. Luffy's an emperor. He's on Shanks' level. It makes sense. But perfectly executed. Perfect execution. And she gives Colin the thumbs up there. He's like, thanks, Mom. Mato-san made all of your favorites. So Mato-san, which, by the way, I always assumed my name, Matthew, Mato, is how you say that in Japanese. Mato, right? That's how you say Matt. I the katakana would just be Ma Mato, right? Mato-san made all of your favorite food in the picnic basket. Here you go. So that was the person that was, I originally assumed that to be Colin's mom working at the pub, this lady, right? We've seen her before in the anime. So that's Mato-san, and yeah, she made the basket for Ripley, and then so she's like, oh, thank you so much. You know, so that was her food delivery, I guess. So Luffy and Sanji are now there, and Luffy is just like, oh, well, good. At least you're teaching your son the old way of Elbaf, right? Because Ripley used to be a warrior. So here's the question. When do giants, you think, on average, because they age, differently than humans, it's like a ×3 kind of difference, right? You take a giant's age divided by 3, and that like roughly gives you the where they are like in terms of human years. When do you think giants on average start like having kids? You know what I mean? Like they settle down and form families and stuff like that. Now, in the case with like Hiruden and Gerd and Goldberg, they're all like in their 60s. Road and Goldberg are in their 60s. Loki is in his 60s. Gerd is in her 70s, and Hiruden's in his 80s. They don't really seem like they're settling down and having kids anytime soon. Once again, they are pirates though, so that might not be the best example. Dory and Bragi are around 150 right now, which puts them around 50 years old. That's like peak prime in One Piece. Like the way that Oda sets it up. Like Garp was pretty much in his prime at like late 40s, early 50s kind of deal. Since Ripley was talking about how she used to be part of the last generation of warriors, I mean, she looks younger than Dory and Bragi. Maybe she just ages really well. I'm gonna say that Ripley is about the same age as Dory and Bragi. Maybe not quite exact, but maybe like in human years she would be in like her 40s, okay? And so because she's part of that older generation, yeah, she's still a warrior. That's why she teaches Colin about fighting and everything, yeah, she settled down and had a kid, and that's the situation there. Colin goes on to say that, did you know my dad is actually a human? So Colin is a half giant, oh yeah, Ripley got lingonberries out of the picnic basket, so she's like, oh, lingonberries, oh great, I'm so happy, great. Sanji hears that Colin's dad is a human that got together with Ripley, who is a giant, and Sanji is probably there like, oh, I see. Just, there's gears turning in Sanji's head right now, like, okay, so this is possible. The mechanics of this do work. Okay. Sanji's gonna be running the numbers for a little while there, and we'll see what he comes up with. But Ripley says, yeah, my husband's much younger than me, though. Our marriage is more informal because if we did get married, the idea is that he would age way faster than her, and it just wouldn't work, really, and he's probably gonna die way before her. But Colin does say he used to be a pirate, and he did not fear anyone, not even the warriors of Elbaf. All right, who do you think Colin's dad is? I'll throw it out there. It's Shiki. Why? Because, you know what I'm going to say. Let's cite my sources. Come on, it's Shiki, right? Shiki's already there. We've seen him walking through the woods. It's clearly Shiki. It actually would make sense if it was Shiki. Like, really? So, Colin, we know from the anime, has pink hair. We do not know what Ripley's hair color is, but we know at least it's a light color because of the manga, right? So it might be the same color as Colin's. She might have pink hair as well. She might be blonde. But no, if she does have pink hair, which is very possible, Shiki has blonde hair, Colin having pink hair too, that might make sense. She definitely doesn't have as deep red hair as like Shanks, if she does have like red hair or pinkish hair, because Shanks' hair is colored in differently, so it might just be pink. I'm assuming it might be Ripley's hair color. So there's something to go on there, I guess. But no, Shiki would be in like his 70s right now. And like I said, if Ripley is part of this former generation of giants, she'd be maybe around 140, 150 in giant years. So she's easily double what Shiki's age would be right around now, even though Shiki is in his 70s. He used to be a pirate and he didn't fear anyone. I mean, this goes along with a lot of pirates back in the day. You could basically say Rox is this kid's dad. You could say, oh, it's Rox, or maybe it's Wang Ji, or Silver Axe. Okay, actually, you know what? The Silver Axe idea, not ridiculous. I mean, like, giants and Vikings used axes, so therefore, yeah, we can incorporate Silver Axe into this. Captain John? No, he's dead. Yeah, this person is clearly still alive. Colin's dad is still alive. And, you know, Ripley doesn't say anything in particular about, like, oh, yeah, my husband is not on the island or he went off to journey somewhere else. So we can assume that Colin's dad and Ripley's husband is still on Elbaf wandering around somewhere. So that means he has to be a human. Wonder if it's the dude that was sitting on the shore. Wonder if it was the dude walking through the jungle in the sun lair. I'm thinking it is. Even if that does not turn out to be Shiki, which, come on, totally is, that is probably Ripley's husband, even if it isn't Shiki. Okay, that's probably who that person is going to be revealed to be, and Colin's dad, all right? So there you go there. So we have that conversation, and then we immediately cut in the next panel. Luffy goes over to the Owl Library. So we, like, you know, quick cut over here. Luffy goes over to the Owl Library because he really wants to get going back to the banquet and having that, you know, giant display of food. And he wants to hit up the buffet, right? Because Luffy's starving right now. He's like, okay, well, this was fun. This was great. Hey, Robin, are you done? Have you met, you know, Saul? He could come with us, but I'm really hungry. Let's go. And so Robin just says, hey, Luffy, I want to talk to Saul a little bit longer. You guys go on ahead. It'll be fine. Bonnie and Lilith are also opting to stay in the library as well. Chopper is not present at the banquet at the end of the chapter, so I'm believing Chopper is staying behind as well. So is Frankie. Frankie specifically says that I want to learn more about the Atomwood tree, so I'm staying right here. Saul talks a little bit about it. He says, oh yeah, there are a few atom trees in the world, like they grow in other places, but the one here in Elbaf is like super old, like off the charts old. Like he doesn't give a specific number, but easily, considering he's a giant talking about this, if it's old from a giant's perspective, easily thousands, maybe even tens of thousands of years old. I mean, Loki talked about the primordial world, like it's always been here, it's the first world. This literally could be one of the first things to ever grow out of the ocean in One Piece world planet history, okay? There it is. Also, the atom tree that Frankie got the lumber from to build the Sunny might not have been the treasure tree atom, now that we know it grew in other places in the world. I even think in film Gold, you see an atom tree on like Gil Tesoro's like giant yacht mansion cruise ship thing on one of the golf courses. It's even growing there. So there are other atom trees. The Sunny was probably not built out of this specific one, but one that was somewhere in the world, right? And they're just very hardy, robust trees. The story that Frankie was telling about the tree was probably about this one specifically, but there are other ones that have been cultivated, right? So Frankie's staying behind there. Lilith mentions that she's trying to get her residency permit, like she's trying to become an official dual citizen of I guess, Egghead and Elbaf, although Egghead's not around anymore, so whatever. So she's like, yeah, I'm going to stay here and probably, you know, begin to set up shop. So also, yeah, Bonnie's staying there, Robin's staying there. I think Chopper is, and Frankie is as well, because they're not present at the end of the chapter, right? So Luffy's just like, oh, okay, well, you guys have fun. I'm really hungry, so I'm going to get going, right? Now, before they all leave, though, Gerd is like, oh, wait a minute, I forgot to give you all something. And in this awesome double-page spread, Brooke, Frankie, Robin, and Jinbei get their badass Elbaf Viking gear, complete with cloaks. So Brooke's got a cloak, and Frankie's got a cloak, and Jinbei's got a cloak, and Robin has like a little mini cloak. But it's really cool. All right, I love Frankie's belt buckle. Frankie's belt buckle is this like swirling, like Jormungandr, like serpent right on this giant belt buckle. Frankie's also got like a skull on his. It looks kind of similar to Loki's without the crown. Frankie also has an awesome beard. I don't know, does the hold his nose and generate like his head hair? Does that also, his head hair, does that also create like a beard or a mustache if he wants to? Maybe it does. Brooks is just pretty standard. He's got some like armor, and he also has like a skull buckle there. He has his cane sword Soul Solid on his back. That's pretty neat. He also has a shield. Brooke has a shield. Brooke with a shield actually sounds really cool, like a cool buckler kind of shield with his cane sword. Yeah, I could see that. I could see Brooke with a shield. He should use a shield more. And Robin's is just like one pant leg, and then another one is like shorter, kind of like Gerd's a little bit, and like the little mini cloak, and midriff exposing like tank top sort of thing, cleavage, you know, One Piece. Okay. Gerd is just like, oh, you guys look so great. And it's like, why do you have these? Oh, I make human clothes for fun, but just for fun. I'm not like Rose. I'm not like Road. I don't kidnap people and put them in the clothes against their will. I just make the clothes in case every now and then a human lands on this island and we can play dress up. It's just how it goes, right? Yeah. But she's really happy and she's like, oh my God, the Straw Hats look so adorable in the clothes. I'm glad you like them. I'm like, okay, all right, Gert, good job there. So they all have Viking clothing and Luffy's like, all right, well, we'll meet you all at the village. And so they all get in the rowboat and they start a paddling and they get out of there with Gerd and Colin in the ship as well. So Colin is not staying behind at the Walrus School. He's going to the Banquet because he has a lot more in common with like the warrior giants anyway. So that's pretty cool. Jinbei even says, oh, these clothes are surprisingly comfortable. I know, Jinbei, cloaks are awesome, right? Okay, so now we cut back to the village, specifically the castle. Oust Castle, near the Western Village. This is indeed the castle that King Harald used to rule all of Elbath from. So, just Western Village. We don't know the name of the village yet, just Western Village, but this was a place where, this was essentially, I guess, the royal capital, because it's where King Harald, like, chose to rule from, right? So, the castle is empty from what we're going to learn, because Elbath currently has no sovereign. However, there are still giants that patrol the halls. Like, no one lives there anymore. It's probably like a rather sacred place where they won't allow anybody to live there since King Harald died. But there are giants wandering around, so they're just like, oh, hey, who are you two? And so these are the two cloaked figures that appeared in the summoning circle in the throne room in the last chapter. Shanks' hot brother and possibly possibly Shanks' hot sister. We do not know. But anyway, the woman is like, we are looking for someone called Loki. Oh, Loki? Why would you want to see that criminal? He's only the person that killed our king and left this castle so completely empty, and now he's locked up and chained up down in the underworld. My name's Exposition. How you doing? Whenever I see criminals trying to sneak around the castle that I've never seen before, I'm gonna give them way too much information about what's going on in this country right now. Nice to meet you. Actually, his name is Bogey, which is, I think, one of the fake names or one of the, like, misremembered names Luffy gives Buggy every now and then. Hey, is your name Booger? No. Is it Bogey? Nah, it's something. Buggy. Yeah, that's it, right? So his name's Bogey. Big, giant, buff guy. He's got, like, an axe. And then there's another giant with, I believe, is that a spear or is that a sword? Spear, sword? No, it's also an axe. They have both, like, just giant axes, and they're, like, the guards of the castle. They probably don't do much for a lot of the day, you know, just kind of walking through the empty halls of their dead sovereign. But anyway, the woman is like, well, tell me where he is. No can do. After all, if I tell... Well, so, going back, he doesn't actually tell them that he's in the underworld. He just says that he killed the king and the castle is empty because of that. Okay, and so this woman asks, hey, where is he? And is like, well, we can't tell you where he is because, you know, you might try to free him or he might use you or manipulate you to free him somehow, which is totally what he did with Luffy. So there is that there. And so the woman is like, so you won't tell me. Oh, this is important. So we didn't exactly see what they were holding in the last chapter when they arrived. We just saw the cloaks. If you zoom in, I love that I have this big monitor right here. If you zoom in on Shanks' brother right here, he's wielding a sword. It's very clear it's a sword, and it looks like a sword similar to Shanks's, okay? So there you go. That's very important. So the woman is like, oh, you're not telling me where Loki is, then I take it. No. All right. So the cloaked figure shoots out something. I believe it's bandages, because we're going to get to that in a moment. Yeah, they're bandages, because you can see two panels here where when the giant is first talking to them, and he's super confident, because he's like, hey, are you guys a member of the Straw Hat Crew? What are you doing sneaking around this castle? He doesn't have any bandages on him, and then when the woman fires something out, he's covered in bandages. So it's bandages that she's firing off. Bandages wrapping around his legs and his arms, and he's like, what is this? Is this some sort of joke? And then immediately he falls to the ground screaming in pain, writhing in pain as Batman turned back into Bruce Wayne. And he's like, oh, it hurts, please make it stop. And then the other giant is like sitting in the back. He's confused. He's like, whoa, Bogey, what's wrong? What's happening? So I'm assuming this woman fired off these bandages. She has the bandage fruit, mythical zone model mummy. Maybe, I don't know. Oh, dude. Oh, she had the bandages last chapter. We saw that. Okay, so Shanks' hot sister is also a mummy. Okay. I was like, all right, I'm cool with this. Dude, Mythical Zone mummy would go hard. Can we just have, I mean, we kind of have a vampire. I mean, you know, Stussy's not really a vampire, but we kind of have a vampire. Can we go God's Knights have the theme of like various monsters from like Universal way back in the day? There's a Frankenstein zone, there's a mummy zone, there's an Invisible Man zone, like they're all mythical zones. I'm okay with mythical zones if they go that direction. That's actually really damn cool. So she fires off the bandages. Bandages wrap around Bogey. They probably constrict super tight. Even as a giant, he's like, oh, this hurts. You're cutting off my blood flow. So he collapses on the ground. He's screaming. And she says, this is what happens when you're too rude and prideful. I wasn't really asking you a question, but this time I'm ordering you. Where is Loki? So the other giant is just like, oh, and then Bogey's on the ground like, I think he just loses consciousness, or they just use the dude. The bandage thing is actually really scary because that woman could probably use those bandages to like snap somebody's neck. All right, so she might have just killed Bogey, dude. These are the God's Knights. I want the God's Knights to rock in and show business. You know, like, okay, 2 guards. Where's Loki? Oh, I'm not telling you. Okay, you're dead. You, where's Loki? Oh, he's down in the underworld. You go left, go right, go down the Rainbow Bridge, make a left into the woods, and you'll see him. All right, thank you. You know, I want the God's Knights to be business, man. All business. All right. Bogey's dead. All right. Let's just go that go that road with it. Okay. So. We got 2 big double-page spreads back-to-back. Actually, 3 if you count that one with the Giants. And it's a loaded chapter. Oda's really given us a lot here for the last chapter of 2024, technically first chapter of 2025. But anyway, so we cut back to the banquet hall in the Western Village. Okay, like, so this is all happening in the castle, and the Straw Hats are completely unaware of this. The village is probably really huge, but is this a thing? Because remember back when they were at Fishman Island, Luffy and Sanji and Zoro were able to use their observation hockey to like sense Caribou's like nefarious intentions in the castle, moving around and kidnapping mermaids and stealing shit, right? Remember that? So is it interesting that, I mean, they are also drinking. Zoro is getting drunk in the background. But is it interesting that they went all the way back to the village, all the way into the banquet hall, and they didn't sense any weird vibes coming off that castle? Luffy might be too focused on food, Zoro might be too focused on drinking, and they might have just been too far away from the castle. Or maybe the God's Knights are able to like cloak their presences. They have a control over their hockey, so you can't sense when they're coming. Maybe, I don't know. So anyway, the Giants are basically giving a massive toast to the Straw Hats. Congratulations! The Straw Hat Pirates, they've come all the way from the East Blue. Usopp and Luffy are having a great time. Like, we finally made it to Giant Land, yeah! And this is an awesome scene where you see Dory Bragi, Oimo and Kashi, and Hiruden all praising the Straw Hats at this banquet for the various reasons on why they helped them. Dory and Bragi are like, you defended our pride, small folk. You know, defended the pride when Mr. 3 used his like wax to knock one of them down and the exploding barrel and everything. And then Oimo and Kashi are like, you freed us after we were fooled. You know, they went off to go find Dory and Bragi. The government lied to them and said, oh, we've captured them. If you work at this gate for 50 years at Enies Lobby, we'll let them go. So they were fooled. They let them go there. And then Hiruden is like, and you saved me from being erased, you know, when he was turned into a toy by Sugar at Dressrosa. Interesting. There was a period of time when Hiruden, the son of King Harald, the, like, Prince of Elbaf, blipped out of existence when Sugar turned him into a toy. Is that going to be relevant? Probably not. But it would be interesting to know what happened when that occurred. Do people remember that they did not remember? I think they do. Yeah, they do. You remember that you forgot. Yeah, like you do remember that. So that's interesting if that ever gets brought up, okay? Anyway, we would all officially like to welcome you to the land of Elbaf. It's nice that the Straw Hats got a warm welcome, you know, for once in a while. I mean, okay, a warm welcome. They were kidnapped and thrown into a diorama. But it's nice that, like, no, The Straw Hats are our heroes. They've helped us so many times. We're not gonna, like, I don't know, we don't trust them. Like, no, they're giving them a damn banquet. And Luffy's even saying, like, man, they're really not looking down on us. This is great, awesome. Nami's holding her ears because it's a bunch of giants, a bunch of sweaty dudes all screaming at the top of their lungs. So Nami is just like, this is loud. Sanji's kind of striking a cool pose. Brooke's back there with a tankard. We see Jinbei there. We see Zoro way in the background drinking out of a huge Sakazuki. So we don't see Frankie, we don't see Chopper, we don't see Robin. Robin stayed behind, we know that. Here's to the great pirate Straw Hat Luffy, one of the Yonko! Woo! Yeah, Luffy! And to his crew that took down the greatest monsters, Kaido and Big Mom! It'd be funny if one of them, like, I want Usopp to just walk out at this point and just be like, yes, Luffy took out Kaido and I'm the one that took out Big Mom. I would say at this point that Eustace and Law would sneeze, but Eustace is dead. He's not dead, but, he might be. I don't know. And Law is, like, still kind of unconscious, like, Beppo is like, it's okay, Captain, we'll find somewhere, So, yeah. Massive panel with all the giants. We see a zoom out of the whole hall. Raise your camaraderie cups. Oh, title drop. For the Straw Hat crew! And you see just a bunch of giants all hanging out. Man, it's a good time. Dude, they're all going to get into a massive battle with those God's Knights, aren't there? I'm foreseeing a moment akin to when the gladiators at Corradia Coliseum were trying to hold back Doflamingo for 10 minutes, and they got their shit wrecked. I'm starting to see this. Like, at some point, those two master or cloaked figures are going to walk out, and the giants are like, you don't hurt the Straw Hats. And then there's, like, giants getting tossed left and right, getting their necks broken by the bandage mummy lady. Shanks' hot brother is slicing them all up with his sword Phoenix. It's going to be cool, man. Not cool for these giants, but it's going to be something. I'm picturing that now. Last page of the chapter, last 2 pages of the chapter, interesting. We see another sky boat approaching the banquet, and Luffy at this point realizes that Stanson is here. Stanson, member of the new Giant Warrior Pirates, Luffy's like, wait a minute. I remember you. Yeah, you grew a beard out. Yeah, I remember you. You were that giant at the auction house with Rayleigh, right? He's like, oh, thanks for reminding me. Thanks for remembering me. My name's Stanson, and I wanted to thank you and everybody for saving me back then. I'm a member of Hyruden's crew. It's just a turn of fate that we ended up together, right? We see a little bit of a panel, a refresher on Stanson. I like that Oda did this for him. Because, Stanson, maybe not a really important character, but, he was in the story before. I like how Oda's like, yeah, no, I remember him. I remember Stanson. So we see a little refresher on Sabaody. We see Luffy punching a Charlos again in little chibi cartoon form. That's really funny. And we see Stanson and Rayleigh there. And it's like, yeah, he was sleeping somewhere at Sabaody. A group of bounty hunters called the Coffee Monkeys captured him while he was asleep, dragged him over to the auction house to be sold. Rayleigh freed him, and then the Straw Hats fought there, and then that's how he got out of there. And yeah, Stanson did say, I'll definitely repay that debt someday, Straw Hats, someday. Well, here we are. We're going to have a moment where Stanson does repay that debt. There might be a moment where, I don't know, some shit's really hitting the fan. I don't know, the mummy lady is coming after everyone, and Stanson takes out his big war hammer, his big maul, and he's just like, Straw Hats, get out of here. I'll hold her off. He cocks his war hammer and he's like, get going. I'll repay the favor. He brings the hammer down, and Shanks' brother blocks it and breaks it in half. No, there's some cool fight scenes I'm headcanoning right now. Okay, so the Elder of Elbaf arrives at the banquet. Not the king, because they don't have a king technically, but this is the village elder, wise old elder. This is Jarl, Lord Mountainbeard, the same Mountainbeard that we saw next to Yorl, the Fallbeard, during Big Mom's flashback at the Lamb's house. Fallbeard Yorl is the one that Big Mom killed. Okay, when she was 6 years old, not even 6 years old, 5 years old, smashed his head against the ground, and that's what killed him. Jarl is still alive. He looks a little bit more aged, but he still has all of his teeth, at least the teeth on his bottom jaw. We see those. His hands are a little bit more wrinkly. His eyes look a little bit more tired. He's got some more liver spots in places, but overall, he seems to be doing good. He's got a sword sticking out of his head, but, you know, these things happen with age. So anyway, he has a laughter style. Bo ja 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 ja. Bo ja ja ja. I like that. That's a good laughter style. By the way, in case you're curious, one of my favorite laughter styles, and it's from a horrible character in One Piece, is Vasco shots. It's like topa 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 topa. It's so ridiculous, and Vasco shot's an awful character, but you know, the laughter style stuck with me. So this one is Bo ja 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 ja. It's like, oh my, it looks like we have some tiny guests here. I thought he was going to be senile as hell. He still might be, but he's at least a little bit lucid here. Mountain Beard Jarl. Hero of the Giants, the oldest one in the world. I am so glad Oda kept him alive, probably for that reason. Because giants have stated to live about 3 times as long as the average human. You want to say like 100, so times 3, so around 300. Anything older than 300. I think Oimo and Kashi even mentioned at Eni's Lobby, around 300 or so is the average life expectancy for a giant. So I was a little dubious when Oda decided to keep Jarl alive. But if Oda's going to go this direction with it, like, no, you know, tell you what. Jarl is still alive, but he is objectively the oldest giant in the world, which is probably making him not the oldest creature, but the oldest humanoid, probably, in the world, unless we, well... Gorosei, not really sure about that. Okay, oldest humanoid that is not having some yokai weird eldritch power going on right now, okay? It's because even the Gorosei, yeah, that's a little bit dubious there. But in terms of the giants, he is the oldest. He is 408 years old. Okay, he was like in his 340s, like 63 years ago when Big Mom was here, right? Okay, so yeah, that is Lord Mountain Beard Jarl, and yeah, he has a sword sticking out of his head, just like sword, head, just right here. You know, like the hilt is coming right out of his head, and then it goes through his helmet, and then you see the blade jutting out the back of his skull. And Luffy sees this, and he's like, holy crap, Gramps, you have a sword in your head. He's like, oh, Bo ja ja ja. This whole thing, yeah, it's an old war wound. I'm lucky my helmet saved me, but it's going through your head. And then that's the end of the chapter. It just hard ends right there, end of the chapter. You know how old guys are telling their war stories? How's this one gonna go? Well, let me sit down and tell you my story. See, I was in battle. By the way, he didn't have this 60-some years ago, so what happened in the intervening time for him to have a sword through his head? Or is it just like a helmet? Is it like a Halloween costume, like the sword goes through this end and then just out the back end, but it's just a helmet? You just take it off. Now, I think, now it's funnier if he got stabbed and it's like, don't remove it, I'll die. All right, just leave it in there then, I guess. I'm already over 400 years old. What the hell do I care? Oh, that's so dumb, but I love it. That's so great. So Broggy's there, and he's just like, oh, Elder Jarl, you made it. He's like, oh, of course, I'm always here. So he's probably like the de facto leader right now in the village, just because, you know, it's just how it goes. They still have to report to Jarl about what Road was doing, you know, and so they said they were going to report that to Road's actions to Jarl and see what was going to happen. So I'm curious where that's going right there. But yeah, that's the end of the chapter, man. We got a lot of crazy stuff going on. We got to learn a little bit about the library, and we saw Colin, and Colin's dad is a human, so, you know, giants and humans can get it on. I mean, we kind of already knew this with Big Mom, because Big Mom's not a giant, but she's giant size almost, and there's other, you know, she has children, right? So, yeah, we could assume, but Colin is half human. And then we see stuff going on with Strahd's got new outfits, and then we saw Shanks' hot brother and sister, and Shanks' sister has the bandage power, and then the giant was almost like probably killed, and then you know, Jarl shows up with a sword in his head. Yeah, that's the makings of a perfect One Piece chapter right there. This is why we read One Piece, because of this nonsense. I love it. All right. Well, anyway, yeah, that's the chapter review. Came up out of nowhere, really. I filmed another video this morning. I filmed a Vegapunk video this morning, and then as soon as that video was up, I was like, oh, checking. I was like, oh, the chapter's out. I'm like, ah. So I'm actually going to be out of town this weekend. So I'm like, I got to film this now to get it out over the weekend. So, yeah, it was a little bit of a rush job, but I think I got it done. But anyway, I'm gonna get going. I'm gonna edit this. Let me know down below how you feel about all this stuff. There's probably like, you know, like so many different points, like 3 or 4 different points just to make off this chapter alone of what's going on here. But it was a really, really solid chapter. Like, Oda is really on point with this one, okay? But yeah, Straw Hat split up again. That's gonna be fun to keep track of. But I think we'll be fine. I think we'll be fine. Let me know what you think about Shanks' sister's ability, whatever that does. If is it a mythical zone, paramecia, bandage fruit, mummy, something related. Let me know about that. But yeah, with that all being said, hope you guys have a very happy new year. I'll probably make another video before then, but last review. This will be officially the last review of the year. Happy New Year, everybody. Techie1 signing out. Let's go to Rainbow Road. Do, do, do.